The hymn Amazing Grace was recently added to the new LDS Hymnal. This hymn is so famous that it's been arranged thousands of times and in many different styles. But my question is, how good is this new LDS version? There are a lot of different opinions about this new version, some extremely positive and some rather negative. In this video, I'm going to show you why I think this new version is really well written. Hi, I'm Dr. Doug Pugh, professional composer and founder of the Latter-day Musiversity, where I teach members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints how to turn their testimonies into song. Today I'm going to break down 7 excellent writing techniques found in this new version of Amazing Grace, and I've made you a little worksheet so you can practice using 2 of these techniques on your own. Many people don't notice these rich harmonic techniques at first because they're hidden within the general simplicity of this hymn. Yet some of these harmony tools are as powerful as any I know, and I'll show you exactly why they work so well. Okay, let's get started. Technique number 1, the warm, gooey chord center. This technique happens right at the end of the first phrase where we get saved a wretch like me. Okay, as you can see on the chord wretch, this is a D minor chord. It's a 6 chord that's really substituting for a 1. But we get a really warm version of this chord, which is interesting because it's on the word wretch. Why would the composer, the arranger, who is not listed here, why would this arranger use such a warm, juicy chord like that? That yummy D minor 7. It's a really beautiful sound. Ah, lovely. The extra warmth comes because of the 7th in the tenor. That C, middle C, right there in the middle, adds a sense of warmth to the phrase. Okay? Now, minor 7ths are like that. See, this is a minor chord, D, F, A, but with a C on it, that's a minor 7th. This is a fun way to add an extra sense of warmth and juiciness to your chords, to add a 7th to a minor chord. This warm, delicious 6-7 chord is just part of this wonderful phrase here, which leads us to technique number 2, gentle, saving harmony grace. Now, in this same phrase, let's look a little more closely at the word like in the phrase wretch like me. Okay, so we saw on wretch that we had that warm 7th, but now on the word like, we have another really warm, juicy chord. Okay, now, if you look at the harmony below in the Roman numerals, we have a 6, and then a 2, and then a 5. It's embellished, but this is a relatively normal chord progression. 6, 2, 5. We're in the key of F major, and it's pretty common to go 6, 2, 5, 1. So it's pretty standard circle of fifths progression, but the way the composer voices these chords, and especially the chord on the word like, is really warm and gentle. It has this feel to me as if, though we're talking about how we're a wretch, we're feeling the warm, gentle grace of the Savior coming over us as we realize what a wretch we are for having sinned. So that started with technique number 1 when we had our D minor chord with that minor 7th on it. But now as we go to the word like, first of all, we get another minor 7th chord. This is G minor 7, G, B flat, D, F. It's inverted. But we get 2 minor 7 chords in a row. First a D minor 7, then a G minor 7. And those 2 7ths, let's see, I got it back. Okay, now there's 2 special things to notice about the exchange here. First of all, I want you to see how this C on wretch was prepared. You see, when you have a seventh on a chord, it works best if it comes from the same note in the same voice in the previous chord. So on this D minor chord, we get the seventh and the tenor, but the tenors were already on C. It's nice to prepare a seventh with a repeated common tone right before it. That's the best way to present a seventh in your chord. Well, in the very next chord on like, we have another seventh. This time it's in the alto, but look, it's also prepared by the previous alto note. So on wretch, the altos are singing wretch, and it's the third of the chord, but then as we move to the next chord, that F becomes the seventh of the chord. Again, prepared by repetition. Whenever you're adding a seventh, try to prepare it in the previous chord with a repetition of a note that becomes a seventh in the chord that you are placing the seventh on. Now, the other thing I want you to notice about this spot is that one of these chords in this progression of 6, 2, 5 is not in root position. And that gives this little moment another bit of warm gooiness, as if we're being washed in the grace of the Lamb. Okay, so we wretch like me, we feel terrible, but the harmony helps us feel a special something. And if the chords had gone in root position, and if they did not have sevenths on them, they wouldn't sound nearly as warm and graceful. They would sound like this. Wretch like me. That's okay. It's pretty standard. But when you get those sevenths and you get an inverted minor 7 and then an embellished 5, that really warms things up. Which leads us to technique number 3, which happens on the word me of this phrase. So as you can see, we've prepared this seventh by repetition. We've prepared this seventh by repetition. And now we're going to prepare this note, which is called a suspension, meaning it's a note that's not resolved. It needs to resolve. When we get to this chord that's a 5 chord, that note's not resolved until the next measure. That's a suspension, a 4-3 suspension, because it's a fourth above the bass, resolving to a third above the bass. And just like sevenths, suspensions are best prepared by repetition. So all of these moments in this beautiful 3-chord phrase that really helps us feel the gentle grace of the Savior have this same technique of preparing the sevenths by repetition, by common tone, and preparing the suspension by repetition, as I've drawn out in purple here. In fact, that's one of the techniques I'm going to help you practice on the free worksheet that I'll give you here in just a minute. So listen again and try to listen to how warm and gentle those repeated notes are when they become sevenths and when it becomes a suspension. That really changes the atmosphere. Instead of just plain root position chords, those the second inversion chord and the minor sevenths and the suspension, all prepared by repetition, really give that phrase a really special feel. One of the reasons I particularly enjoy this version of the hymn. Now let's look at technique number 4, saving sleight of hand. Now we're still in the same phrase, but we have one more very interesting bit to cover here. Now we're transitioning from the phrase wretch like me to I once was lost. As we do so, the composer plays one of my favorite little tricks on us. So let's look at that same progression. We go wretch like me, and then that chord finally resolves. Now that is a 5 chord, C, E, G. The 5 chord has a very closely related cousin, and it is the 3 chord. the 3 chord shares 2 of the same notes. In this key of F major, the 5 chord is C, E, G, the 3 chord is A, C, E. So the C and the E are shared between the 5 chord here, and here they are again in the 3 chord. The only difference is that A on top. So when you get a 3 chord in first inversion, it's almost the same as the 5. It's just a little different because of that one note. And that is like a little sleight of hand from one chord to the next that adds a very interesting emotion. So, wretch like me. And then, because it's minor, hear how it's minor? It's not, I once. He could have gone back to F major. I once. They could have written the F here and the A and the C down in the min. And that would have been wretch like me, I once. But instead we get the E in there, which makes it minor. That gives us this sense of, oh, lost. It's amazing how one little note change can change the emotional appeal of a chord change. And that's a great example of doing that. But he's not done, because the 3 chord is also closely related cousins to the 1 chord. In this key, the 1 chord is F, A, C, and the 3 chord is A, C, E. So the 3 chord also shares 2 notes with the 1 chord. The A and the C belong to both the 3 chord and the 1 chord. So we get a double sleight of hand from the 5, which slips to 3 in first inversion, but then the 3 slips to 1/6. So again, one note different. From the 5 to the 3, one note shifts and we get a different emotion. And then from the 3 to the 1/6, one more note shifts and we get yet another emotion. So my point is, you don't have to make huge changes to have a beautifully emotional set of chord changes. Technique 5, grace chord. This hymn is particularly effective because of the depiction of grace, the Savior's amazing grace, and how beautiful and how delicious that grace is. And in this version of the hymn, this is probably the one chord that pleases me the most, and why I feel that this is such a nice version of this hymn, and it's on the word lost. You wouldn't think that lost could have such a warm, juicy, delicious feel, but this is precisely the message, that when we are lost, his hand is always outstretched to help us. And we hear this in the music. When we get to this part, we have a very beautiful chord. So we start with I once, 3 in first inversion, to 1 in first inversion, back to 1, and now that bit right there. There's a couple ways to look at that chord. When the chord moves to beat 2, and we get that B flat in the tenor, the chord becomes a 4 chord, which is B flat, D, F in first inversion. But the C on it, oh, do you hear that? Hear how beautiful that is? That's a 9th. This is a B flat 9 chord, but in first inversion with a 3rd in the bass and the 9th right in the middle. That is an absolutely beautiful chord. Anytime you have a 4 chord on a moment of important emotional content in the lyrics, try to see if you can add a 9th. The way it's done here is it's prepared again by repetition. Just like 7ths, just like suspensions, it's best to prepare a 9th by repetition from the previous chord, and it gives us that wonderful sense of, even though I'm lost, there is still hope. Technique 6, double meaning of found. Now we're at this beautiful spot where I once was lost, but now am found. So how does the arranger make us feel found? We felt the grace of having hope even though we're lost, but now am found. Ooh, another beautiful moment. So now am found. Da-da. The tenors get the meaningful bit here. So right before found on am, we get another minor 7. You see right here on am, we get another G minor 7, G, B flat, D, F, but the B flat is in the bass. So that nice warm minor 7th, the bass steps down, the tenor repeats itself on a juicy note that resolves. Okay, that is what we call a 7/6 suspension, meaning the G is a 7th above the bass, and it does not belong to the chord. So actually, the G is a little bit lost. The G doesn't fit the chord, it's lost, and it has to be found, and it's found by stepping down into the Savior's grace to F. Okay, so now am found. Da-dee-da. And how did that suspension get prepared? Just like the other things, by repetition. Are you getting the point yet? When you want to add a special warm fuzzy note, whether it's a 7th or a 9th or a suspension, it is best prepared by repetition. And why does that matter? It matters because if you just throw in a 9th out of nowhere, out of context, it doesn't mean as much. It's like in a great talk or a great speech when the orator prepares you for an idea by planting seeds for that idea earlier, and then when they get to their point, it makes so much sense because of what has been said before. That's what's happening here musically. That suspension note, that lost note that's then found, we feel it more because it was prepared. Technique 7, when the 2 chord and the 5 chord become one. The whole point of Amazing Grace is to help us realize that we can become one with the Savior, that though we were lost, we can be found and carried in his arms and become one with him. And in this arrangement, we have an actual chord that does it right at the precise moment when I see. I was blind, but now I see. What's happening here is we get what I like to call a mashup chord. Really, this is a chord that's called a 5/7 chord with a 9th on it, and there's no third, which happens sometimes. But if you look at it another way, it's kind of like 2 chords have been smushed together. If you look at the soprano, alto, and tenor, you have G, B flat, and D. That's a 2 chord. That's a normal old 2 chord. But the bass is on a C, and the bass motion to the final chord is 5/1. So we're getting the 5/1 in the outer voices, but it's not a normal 5/1. It's not even a normal 5/7, which would be. But the D in the middle, ooh, that makes it a 2 chord. G, B flat, D, with 5 underneath. Ta-dum. So it's like 5/1 in the bass, but it's also like 2/1 in the upper voices, and they're going contrary to each other. So we have the soprano going down, the alto going down, the tenor going down, and the bass going up. So the Savior descends down, and we ascend up as we become one with him in the connecting of the 2 chord and the 5 chord in this 5/9 feel here at the very end, which is so beautiful and harmonically brings us to be one with the Savior. Oh, that's so much more meaningful than just normal 5, but Well, if you couldn't tell already, I am very glad that this hymn is now in our book, and I'm especially glad that this particular arrangement is in our book. It's beautiful. It has so many warm, delicious moments which truly depict for me how the Savior's love can feel to us. Now, before you go, I've got a special worksheet for you. I've prepared a little exercise so you can put into practice a couple of these techniques. As you can see, I've prepared part of the hymn for you here as an example, Saved a Wretch Like Me. I've given you the names of the chords up here with letter names, and then also in Roman numerals if you speak in Roman numerals. And then I've invited you to try your hand at preparing a seventh and preparing a suspension by repetition, just like how we saw this seventh prepared by repetition, this seventh prepared by repetition, and this suspension prepared by repetition, as we looked at just a moment ago. And then there's a second exercise where we do something similar, but this time we're going to do it in the bass and in the tenor. So I've also provided an answer key down here for you. I won't show you the answers because I want you to try it on your own, but below this video, there's a link where you can download this worksheet and these exercises and try them out for yourself. I hope you will enjoy this exercise because it's one thing to look at the hymn and understand what's going on. It's another thing to learn how to use the techniques going on in this hymn. And I hope this worksheet will get you started using these beautiful Amazing Grace techniques. And I've added my full analysis to the free download so you can see all of the chords and how they work in this beautiful new version of Amazing Grace. If you've enjoyed this video, please support my channel by hitting subscribe and ringing the bell so you won't miss any future videos. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.